The JLR interview series.
Right, so it's Wednesday, the 23rd of August, and we're just coming up to 2 p.m. And today at the Live at ZL Club. This is in the heart of Soho, Piccadilly, actually, Piccadilly Circus. And I've got a special guest today, and her name is Lucy Dixon. How are you today, Lucy?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Now, Lucy's very interesting. She's a cabaret performer. She sings, plays percussion, and tap dances. So she's got quite a few strings to her bow. So it's very nice to interview Lucy today. And before I get going, I should add that I saw her last month perform at this venue, and it was a very, very enjoyable experience. And I wrote a review of it, which you can see on the website. So first things first, so you're back in London because you're based in Paris.
That's right.
Now.
Yeah,
Right.
I've been living there for 17 years.
17 years, okay.
Time flies.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, that's the turn of millennium, isn't it? Really, 2000.
Exactly. Yeah, it felt like the right time for me to, change a bit, change of scene. Actually, the truth is, I'd been on tour with a group, a performance group called Stomp.
Yes.
With them going around the world, and we spent quite a lot of time in Paris, and I got very familiar with it and started to meet people. I met musicians, and so it just seemed like a good idea to put my bags down and start to explore the music business there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you don't regret it if you've been there.
No regrets at all. Je ne regrette rien, as Edith Piaf would say. It's a beautiful city full of strange people and misery and joy and pain.
Like any big city.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you've been there for that long length of time. So basically, you're performing in London first, and then, was it the kind of style of performance that you do? It was much easier to fit into Paris, more seamless, would you say?
I started in. Actually, my first ever job was at the Lido. I was a showgirl. Okay. But then I kind of went on another tangent and got into the comedy musicals, Cats and Follies, Stephen Sondheim, Cabaret, and stuff like that. So, and then by the time I went back to Paris, I was more interested in trying to do something that was a solo project, and I think, yes, I was drawn back to Paris because of its connections, its history, traditions of jazz, back in the 30s, 40s, even earlier 20s. And this particular project also has quite a strong connection with Paris in that it's got a lot of influence from the manouche jazz, which is was made well known by Django Reinhardt and Stefan Grappelli. So it's basically, there is a very strong presence of gypsy jazz in Paris, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular project.
Yeah.
Which is not entirely a manouche project, because manouche is most often instrumental.
Oh, is it? I never really thought about that.
It's usually the guitarist who's sort of the voice,
leader.
And and this is a mixture of that kind of jazz and also the Great American, standard songbook, like a lot of Fred Astaire influence, which is to do with the tap dancing that I do, and actually quite a few Fats Waller songs as well. I just sort of went into the repertoire and looked at old songs, and so there are some that are quite well known, and others are hopefully less well known, because it's nice to discover. And boy, there are so many songs back then, it's just the richness of the repertoire is never ending, really.
So basically this is kind of like a hybrid on that gypsy jazz, manouche.
And one other. What I was just going to say was one other reason I chose that formation, which is 2 guitars and double bass, is that there were no drums, and I'd been working with only drummers, when I was performing with Stomp, which was wonderful. But I thought, now it's time for a change. I think I won't have any drums, and the idea was to have the rhythms being represented with the rhythmic guitars and also the tap dance.
Okay.
So it was a bit of an experiment, actually.
Okay. And what about the bass player? I mean, would he play a bit more percussively, or would he just? Yeah,
I think amongst those guys that play regularly, who I've talked to, they say there is quite a particular style to the type of bass playing, and which is, like you say, also. Well, bass playing is rhythmic anyway. It's just part of its.
But
job.
the way how when I saw you guys last month, and are they brothers, by the way?
Yeah, I've got 2 brothers. One the guitarist and his
Actually,
brother.
might as well mention who.
Yeah, sure. So
are.
the bass players I've known ever since I started working in Paris. He's called Sebastian, and he's a wonderful jazz player. And his brother is called David Guestin, and he's playing rhythm guitar. And then on the album, we've had a few different guitarists. Sometimes it's quite hard to pin them down. But the guitarist who played on the album is called Sami Dosa, and he's quite a well-known figure in the jazz scene in Paris. And he was replaced, I'd say a couple of years ago, by another guitarist called Vincent Simonelli.
Okay.
And that's who we're with now.
Okay. So, you're basically a quartet.
Quartet, yeah, with me doing tap dancing. if you can call it an instrument.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely call it. Did you play harmonica as well? I'm trying to.
Not harmonica, but I did. Sometimes I play a bit of snare drum as well.
Oh, yes.
And then I also have various different objects, rhythmic objects.
Yes, I remember. You had a plastic
there was
bag.
a plastic bag, yeah.
Where did you get that idea from?
Well, I have to say it's not particularly original from me, but it's something we played a lot of everyday objects like that with Stomp.
Yeah, but the sound, it sounded like like brushes.
A bit like brushes.
How
I
is
tried.
that possible?
Well, I just sort of, you find, over the years you try out lots of different plastic bags, and you refine it. You find the one that makes a good sound, I very much enjoy, looking for new sounds, and yeah.
Yeah, and the teapot.
And the teapot, yes. Well, yeah, the teapot. Some love it, some hate it. It doesn't make a very good sound, but it looks good.
Well, it's definitely novel, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Why not? I remember the comedian Bill Oddie used to have a show years ago on the radio. This is a couple of decades ago, and he would say about percussionists, he'll say he'll play everything, including the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
So really, you're taking that to a new phase.
Well, that's very true. It's yeah.
Okay, so before I move on to my next question, I was asking about Sebastian, the bass player.
Yeah.
Because when I saw him, because I've seen bass players do this before when they play the double bass, the acoustic, and the way he slaps it, it's very percussive, so it kind of takes the place of a drummer. So instead of just walking the bass all the time, so it's quite unique.
Yeah, obviously he's better placed to talk about it, but I would just say that he's a very versatile player, and he uses all sorts of different techniques, and he's a wonderful musician, actually. So I'm very lucky.
Yeah. Okay, so what I really want to ask you is, how did you were born in London, is that correct? Okay. Is that north or south?
North.
North London, okay.
Highgate. Went to school in Muswell Hill.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I know that quite well. And although I'm South London,
Okay.
yeah, Greenwich. So so how did you get into cabaret, this sort of stuff,
Well,
really?
I mean, cabaret. I don't suppose I really equate what I do with. I don't know. It depends what you mean. Do you mean cabaret as the style, or as the kind of type of venue?
Well, too, I'm not really an expert, so
No. I mean, this. I think how did I get into cabaret?
Or do you perform in sort of cabaret settings in Paris?
Well, not really. No.
So
This is quite an unusual run of concerts at the Crazy Coqs here at Zadel, because it is essentially a cabaret room, and
Right.
most of the performances here, as far as I can tell, are much more cabaret-esque.
Right.
There might be West End performers who are doing an after show
Oh, I see.
performance with a pianist, or so I'm basically bringing what is essentially a sort of more typical jazz club performance into this cabaret setting.
Ah.
And it seems to work, but I don't have a kind of patter, I'm not sort of telling lots of stories or anything, it's more like sort of music, but great songs, that kind of songs speak for themselves, really. I think anyway.
Yeah.
But I really, I really enjoy playing here. It's a wonderful place. I mean, not only it's in a fantastic room. We're here. It's this round room with beautiful enamel, Art Deco, mirrored ceiling, and plush red velvet curtains, and it's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah. It is, isn't it? And the stage is quite nice as well.
Yeah.
It's got a grand piano at the moment.
Yeah.
So basically, you see yourself more as like a jazz singer?
I'd say really at the moment I'm in this particular project. I'm more of a jazz artist, really. Yeah.
And you do other projects as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have
So
done.
what kind of projects?
All sorts of things. I mean, I work with some people in Paris doing sort of almost like performance art, actually, and we've done various rather strange performances in shop windows and things like that. I'm also, that's very much extremely different to this project. Otherwise, in terms of music, I also have had quite a long-term relationship with a writer called Fran Landesman, who's no longer with us, but who is a beat poet, and I've done various different projects to do with her work.
Yeah.
Including one with a guy called Howard Samuels, and we're going to be back at the Crazy Coqs, and that is more of a cabaret performance, actually.
Okay.
That really is more of a cabaret. It's the two of us with a piano player.
Okay.
And that's on the 24th of September. And then I also work with currently with another jazz piano player from London called Dave Gordon, who has his own trio, and we're also working on a project together, which will also probably include some tap dancing as well. And next time we play is the 1st of October at the Pizza Express in Dean Street.
Yeah.
It's a lunchtime concert, and it's with, amongst others, with Alec Dankworth,
Oh, right. Okay.
who I'm looking forward to working with.
Yeah. So I mean.
So various things, you know. And also theatre. I've done quite a lot of theatre and been involved in various different theatre collectives in the English-speaking community in Paris.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I try not to get bored.
Well, I mean, you sound quite busy, and you've got that vibe as well. You've got the nice fedora hat on today, for instance. So, and also, I wanted to ask you about your tap dancing. How did you get into tap? How did it?
Well, I started pretty young. I started proper classes when I was about 12, and because I think it's quite difficult to start much earlier than that, because it requires quite a lot of discipline, and at the beginning it can be quite boring, because you've got to just repeat the little rhythms, and so for younger children I think it's more difficult to concentrate. But anyway, so I started about 12, and then I used to go to the dance centre in Floral Street in London and do some boogie-woogie tap dancing with a teacher called Ronji. And then I had a very nice teacher called Derek Hartley, who was kind of in the style of Gene Kelly, I would say.
Okay.
And then someone who really influenced me a lot was a guy called Honey Coles, who was one of the original sort of tap dancing duos from Harlem back in the day. And he came over and gave some workshops at the Riverside Studios. And I just totally fell in love with him, and I fell in love with his style. I mean, he was about 75 at the time, and he was the most snappiest dresser I'd ever seen, and he just had some really cool steps. And that was round about the time when people like Savion Glover and the other guy, Gregory Hines.
Gregory Hines, yeah.
When it was becoming quite fashionable and it was being reinvented. And so I took on a bit of that. I mean, I'm obviously a big fan of Fred Astaire, who was not only a tap dancer. What was wonderful about him was he was also a very good drummer, and also a very good piano player.
Really?
And obviously he was a great singer and an actor too. Obviously, but the fact that he was a rounded musician, made him much more. Made it much more subtle what he was doing. I think he was. So I aspire to people like him, but it's my own style. I think in the end you just sort of end up. And because I had a background in classical and contemporary dance as well, I suppose it's just you pick up different influences and create your own style.
What? I mean, did you see it on TV or?
We used to watch.
Family who?
Yeah, we used to watch. I mean, the Fred Astaire films. Top Hat used to be on at Christmas in the morning and stuff. And my parents really loved it as well. And I think those old films were so complete and involved everything that I love, which is great rhythm, great music, great songs, lyrics, fantastically glamorous, beautiful clothes, wonderful settings, and that it was just a sort of completely, it was like perfection really. And so and the sense of freedom through rhythmic dance just appealed to me so much. And then you begin to understand how hard they worked. I mean, how incredibly difficult it was what they were doing. Well, quite often I dance mostly in little jazz clubs. I'll be dancing on a board that's about 2 foot square or something, or 3 foot square. So it's quite limited. But also that's really good. What you get from limitations often produces interesting. Like for example, improvising with the bass player, for example, and exchanging rhythms.
And you got your tap dance shoes on, I see.
Yeah, I got my tap shoes on, and here I don't know whether here I could just, because as you here on the floor here we've got. You've got that kind of sound, and then over here is a different sound, so we go up on the stage. and then you can mix the two. Voilà.
Wow. Marvellous.
Hours of fun.
Yeah. That is amazing. So basically, I mean, you know, because you were saying you had a special board on the stage, but really,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell if.
Yeah,
'cause
well,
on
there
this board-
in the detail of it, you know, dancing on a floor that's made of stone, after a while makes your knees hurt,
Oh,
you know.
okay.
So it's best
Right.
to avoid. And then, you know, if you get a nice, sometimes you get a nice wooden floor, and of course people just kind of they scream and say, you know, get off, you know, you're going to scratch our floor. So you got to find the right conditions. It's not always easy to find the right place to tap dance.
Well, actually, do you sometimes bring your own like board? Of
Yeah,
your,
yeah. I had to bring
Actually,
my
wow,
own
that
board
makes sense.
sometimes.
Custom made.
Custom-made boards, yeah. Yeah, definitely,
They should get a
definitely.
sponsor.
Completely, yeah. It's a good idea.
Okay, fantastic. So I won't hold you up too much longer because I know you got to go away and do some other things. So yeah, so basically, so you're performing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Here again. So this is the second time because I saw you
Oh,
last.
yeah. No, we've had a run of. This will be the 5th concert we did here.
Okay.
Yeah, once a month since April.
Oh,
And,
right. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and so we'll see what happens. It's very nice to have, have you, helping doing a bit of publicity and stuff. We'll see
Oh,
what
you're
happens. I mean, yeah.
Well, the audience was very enthusiastic
Yeah.
last time, so
Absolutely.
yeah. Because it's something different, as to say again, isn't it?
Yeah, I think people do really enjoy it, and because it's such great material, and tap dancing is kind of, it's interesting to watch at the very least. And
Yeah, it is. That is very true.
I try not to do too much, as they say,
Yeah.
too much. In French, say trop de claquettes, tue le claquette.
Yeah.
Too much tap dancing kills the tap dancing. I think it can be anything good. Too much of anything is.
No, that makes
boring,
sense
you know.
because that's something that occurred to me when I saw you last month. Is that you used it very sparingly.
Yeah.
You weren't playing tap dancing on every tune.
No.
In fact, I would say it's virtually once every 4 or 5 tunes that you did.
Possibly,
maybe.
yeah. Possibly, yeah.
So that makes sense. It's a bit like a trumpet player for
Yeah.
a singer. He's
You
just
don't want-
filling in the little bits.
You
He's
don't
not.
want solos everywhere, And I also try to use it sometimes more like a drum, more like drums. And
Yeah.
so I'll just be doing, something underneath that's sort of adding to the rhythm,
Yeah.
holding down.
Yeah. Oh, marvellous. So, before we finish up, do you have any other dates you would like to let the listeners
Well,
know about?
Well, like I said earlier, I've got not for this particular project. We're now sort of looking to see where we can take it next. But as I said, I think I mentioned I was doing the Pizza Express on the 1st of October
Okay.
with Dave Gordon, and then back at this Crazy Coq's venue on the 24th of September with Howard Samuels for a cabaret project called Invade My Privacy, which is based on the wonderful poems of Fran Landesman,
Right.
the beat poet.
Yeah.
And watch this space. I've got my website, thellucydixon.com.
Mm-hmm.
All the sort of up and coming dates are on there,
Okay.
and various different links and stuff.
And we should also mention that you also got a CD as well.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a CD. Lulu's back in town.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite appropriate, the title. Back home in London. Yeah.
Excellent. Right, so I think that's it for me then. So, thanks for the interview with Jazz London Radio, and enjoy the performance tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
The JLR Interview Series.
Got to get your old tuxedo pressed. Got a silver button on your vest, 'cause tonight you've got to look your best, 'cause Lulu's back in town. Gotta get a half a buck somewhere. Gotta shine your shoes and slick your hair. Gotta get yourself a bouton, yeah, 'cause Lulu's back in town. You can tell all his pets, all his Harlem coquettes. Miss Otis regrets that he won't be around. You can tell the mailman not to call. He won't be coming home until the fall. And then again, he might not get back home at all, 'cause Lulu's back in town. Dixon regrets, yes, that he won't be around. Well, you can tell the mailman not to call. He won't be coming home until the fall, and then he might not get back home at all, 'cause Lulu